The camera above the kitchen island blinked once at exactly 2:13 a.m. Most people would have missed it. A tiny red flicker, barely visible against the dark ceiling. But I build commercial security systems for a living, and hidden cameras have a rhythm, especially cheap ones. I stood barefoot in the dark kitchen, holding a glass of water while rain tapped softly against the windows. The refrigerator hummed behind me. Upstairs, my husband, Ethan, was pretending to sleep. Pretending. Because 3 minutes earlier, my phone had connected to an unauthorized local network signal inside our house. A surveillance relay. My stomach tightened. I slowly looked around the kitchen. The motion sensor above the pantry. The smoke detector near the hallway. The digital clock on the microwave. Then I saw it again. Blink. Tiny. Fast. Watching me. That's when I realized something terrifying. My husband wasn't spying on me because he was jealous. He was documenting me. And suddenly, every strange thing from the past 6 months started fitting together like broken glass. If you've ever had someone slowly make you question your own reality, hit like right now and tell me your city in the comments, because what happened in this house nearly destroyed my life. But Ethan made one fatal mistake. He thought he was the only surveillance expert living here. My name is Lena Mercer, and the night I discovered the cameras was the night I stopped being his wife and became his worst nightmare. 3 months earlier. It started with little things. That's how psychological traps always start. Small enough to dismiss, small enough to doubt yourself. A missing phone charger, cabinet doors left open, conversations Ethan claimed we already had. At first, I blamed stress. I worked for Sentinel Integrated Systems, designing high-end surveillance infrastructure for banks, biotech firms, and luxury properties. My job required precision, long hours, constant threat analysis. Meanwhile, Ethan worked as a behavioral psychologist, which, looking back now, feels almost cruelly ironic. People loved Ethan. Patients loved him. Neighbors loved him. My mother loved him. Ethan had this calm, measured voice that made everyone feel safe, including me, for 7 years, until the night he looked at me across the dinner table and casually said, "You've been forgetting things a lot lately." The way he said it bothered me. Not concerned, measured, like he was testing a script. I laughed it off. But then it kept happening. He'd move objects and ask if I remembered doing it. He'd repeat conversations differently than I remembered them. Once, he swore I left the front door open all night. I knew I hadn't. I check locks compulsively. Security professionals do that. But Ethan only smiled gently and touched my hand. "Lena, maybe you should slow down at work." That was the first moment I felt it. Not fear, something worse. Doubt.
2 weeks later, my company badge stopped working. I stood in Sentinel's lobby at 7:45 a.m. while security reactivated my credentials. System showed unusual login activity, the guard told me. I frowned. That's impossible. But apparently, someone had accessed restricted internal documentation using my credentials at 2:11 a.m. I was asleep at 2:11 a.m., or at least I thought I was. That night, I checked our home network logs. Nothing unusual, which made no sense, because corporate credential theft leaves fingerprints, always, unless someone cleaned the logs professionally. I looked up from my laptop slowly. Ethan sat across the living room reading calmly beside the fireplace, his reading glasses low on his nose. Perfect husband posture, warm light, soft music, rain outside, a painting of domestic peace, and for the first time, I wondered if I was sitting across from a stranger. The hidden camera confirmed it. Once I spotted the first one, the rest became obvious. Smoke detectors, air purifier, hallway thermostat, 14 cameras inside our house, every single one professionally concealed. Not amateur work. This cost money, planning, intent, and that terrified me more than the cameras themselves, because Ethan wasn't improvising, he was building something. I didn't confront him. That would have been emotional, and emotional people lose surveillance wars. Instead, I started watching him back, quietly, carefully, professionally, and Ethan never noticed, because predators rarely imagine prey studying them at the same time. The next morning, he made coffee exactly the way I liked it. 2 sugars, cinnamon, tiny splash of cream. His smile looked perfect. "You okay?" he asked casually. I studied his face. Most people don't realize this, but surveillance experts learn behavioral analysis too. Micro-expressions, delay timing, eye tracking. Ethan looked relaxed, too relaxed, like a man whose trap was working. I smiled softly. "Just tired." He stepped closer and kissed my forehead. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. "You scared me last night. You were talking to yourself again." Again. That word hit me like ice water. Again implies pattern, documentation, narrative building. I forced a confused laugh. "I was asleep. You walked into the kitchen around 2:13 a.m. The camera blinked at 2:13. My pulse slowed, not sped up, because suddenly I understood the game. He wanted timestamps, behavior footage, evidence, and I realized something horrifying. Those cameras weren't for him. They were for someone else, and I was dangerously wrong about how far this conspiracy actually went.
That night, after Ethan fell asleep, I drove to a storage facility 12 miles outside the city. Unit 4C, my emergency hardware locker. Every security engineer I know keeps one. Inside were backup drives, portable routers, signal scanners, thermal readers, unregistered micro cameras, and a black Pelican case containing tools worth more than my car. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead while rain hammered the metal roof. I sat on the concrete floor beside the case and tried to think clearly. Emotion clouds pattern recognition, and right now, my emotions were screaming. I plugged the network scanner into my laptop. Then I mapped every hidden device inside our house. 14 cameras, 3 microphones, 1 encrypted remote access tunnel routed through an external cloud server. I stared at the IP logs. Then my stomach dropped. The access credentials belonged to a company called Behavioral Wellness Analytics Group. I knew that name. They partnered with psychological institutions, court-appointed evaluations, mental competency hearings. My hand slowly froze over the keyboard. Ethan wasn't spying on me for divorce leverage. He was building a psychological instability case against me. And suddenly, every strange thing made sense. The forgotten conversations, the manipulated environments, the subtle sleep disruptions, the comments about stress, the concern, the witnesses. Oh God, the witnesses! 2 weeks earlier, Ethan hosted a dinner party. His colleague, Dr. Valerie Kane, attended, along with Sheila. Halfway through dinner, Ethan casually asked, "Lena, did you ever remember where you left your car keys in the freezer?" Everyone laughed politely. I laughed too, because I never put my keys in the freezer, but Ethan said it so naturally, so gently, that even I questioned myself for half a second. Now I understood. He was planting narrative seeds publicly, creating social confirmation, documenting instability. And if you've ever dealt with someone who manipulates people quietly while pretending to care about you, subscribe right now, because the worst predators never raise their voices, they smile. I spent the next 4 nights building my counter system. Ethan monitored the visible house. I built the invisible one. Fiber-thin lens cameras inside wall vents, passive audio capture hidden in electrical outlets, a silent backup server beneath the basement stairs, and one final piece, the mirror feed. Everything Ethan recorded, I copied. Every file, every upload, every edit. He thought he controlled the surveillance. What he didn't know was that I was watching the editor. And that's where the real nightmare began. Because Ethan wasn't just recording me. He was modifying footage, cutting context, splicing reactions, building scenes.
One clip showed me pacing the kitchen at 1 a.m., except the original recording showed Ethan waking me repeatedly every 20 minutes before that. Another showed me crying in the garage. The original footage? Ethan had just told me my mother called him worried about my mental state. He was manufacturing instability, frame by frame, professionally, carefully, legally. And someone was helping him, because edited files started disappearing from the server every Thursday night at exactly 11:40 p.m., transferred remotely to Dr. Valerie Kane, the therapist from the dinner party, the same woman who smiled sympathetically while asking me if I'd considered burnout leave. I leaned back in my chair inside the basement server room and suddenly felt cold all over. This wasn't marriage trouble anymore. This was coordinated psychological destruction. And I still hadn't discovered the worst part, because 2 nights later, I found the file labeled Intervention Prep, Lena Mercer, and inside it was a date.